Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us wherever you are. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your location. Our seminar today is with Eyal, who's Senior Solution Architect at Source Labs. Thank you for joining us, Eyal. The topic is Appium, and this is designed as a kind of beginner's guide to using Appium and to the tricks that you can use to optimize the efficiency of testing with Appium. So Source Labs, as many of you will know, has a long history of support for the Appium community, right from the start of Appium, the creation back in 2013, I think, and has funded that community over those past 10 years or so. Appium is an open source tool for testing native apps on mobile, and in particular for creating automated tests for those apps. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, how you use it. Very importantly, we will be leaving time at the end of Eyal's presentation after 30 minutes or so for your questions. So simply put those into the Q&A tab that you see at the bottom of your screen there. We'll be covering, Eyal will be covering in the presentation why we need Appium, and indeed why we need automated tests for our apps, the key challenges in automation, and also, as I mentioned, his hints and tips for most effectively using Appium. So please don't forget to ask your questions. And I will also mention that Eyal will be speaking at our QA Financial Forum London, that is live. We'll be holding that at the Hilton Canary Wharf on October the 18th. So if you're interested in joining us, please visit our website, www.qafinancial.com. And if you work for a financial firm, you can register for free and attend that event. And Eyal, along with 15 or so other very interesting speakers, will be presenting on the day there as well. In the meantime, Eyal, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me and can you see my slide, just to be sure?
Yes, that looks fine.
Okay. So hi everyone. First of all, welcome. First of all, as we discussed, as you know, this session is about best practice with Appium. So just a moment, right the mouse. Welcome everyone. My name is Eyal. I am Senior Solution Architect at Source Labs. I'm based in London, in the UK. And before talking about Appium, let's start with the challenges that we have in the software development lifecycle. And lifecycle that are specific when we build, when we test, we deploy a mobile app. Okay, and that can be any mobile app, finance apps, for banks, for any native apps. So first, if we compare mobile to web, it is easy to roll back a web app. Okay, if you find a bug in productions, it's very easy to roll back and web applications. But with mobile automations, you have a challenge. You can't roll something back after it was installed on the phones of your users. You don't have such power. Also, mobile is remote by default. So if something happens, it is happening in the hands of your end user, and you can't easily communicate with them. So do you know which specific devices they have? How many apps are open? What is the memory consumptions of your applications or applications that run in the background? Mostly, you don't have these informations. And last but not least, about a fragmented market. Apple, I think that Apple has around 28 different devices, but Android, there are so many models, brands, operating system, it is crazy. So how can you make sure your app can run on all the devices with Wi-Fi? What is the status of the battery, all the operating system? how can actually you can test it. Research has shown that the quality of experience that your end user will have has a direct impact on your revenue. 20% of users confirmed they will abandon shopping with a brand just after one bad experience. App crashes, freeze, and errors can trigger that up to 53% of users will uninstall such apps. This is a huge numbers, yeah. And app rating is very critical. So the positive side is that improving your app and increasing your app rating by 1 star can increase your conversions by 89%. But 50% of customers, and I admit that I'm part of these customers, will not download an app rated 3 stars or less. So actually, you can't allow yourself having a box of devices and every release take out the box, give devices to the developers and QA teams, and for half a day or a day, everyone run manual tests. And this is actually what I did a few years ago in one of the bank companies here in the UK. So that's exactly what I was doing every release. So what you need automation framework that be able to test your business flows on different devices, different brands, Android and iOS, different operating system. As part of your business flows, the automations framework find your app elements, perform actions as your customers perform these actions, such as click on the elements, type, and perform assertions or verifications that your business flow run as expected. And you can do all of that with Appium. Okay, so after this introduction to Appium, let's understand what is Appium. Oh, I found the button. So from the Appium website, Appium is an open source tool for automating native mobile web and hybrid applications on iOS mobile, Android mobiles, and Windows desktop platforms. We will discuss here more about Appium and iOS, iOS and Android, and less about Windows desktop, but it's possible. First, let's understand what is open source tool, and after that, what are actually the application types that are mentioned here. So Appium is an open source tool, meaning it is a test automation framework for the community, by the community. Everyone can contribute and help to make Appium even more awesome and better. There is a Appium Slack workspace with different channels for discussions, and everyone can join, contribute, ask questions. It's very open to discussions. Also, back to these slides, let's understand what are actually the application type that Appium supports. So native apps are those written using the iOS and Android SDKs, SDK software development kits, and we download them from Google Play or App Store. Mobile web apps, are web apps that we access to them using a mobile browser. And with Appium supports Safari on iOS and Chrome or the built-in browsers app for Android. And hybrid apps are native apps that actually are wrapped web pages that are called WebView. So there is a native control that enable interactions with web content. So back to these slides. Appium is a tool to automate apps on mobiles. So from one side, we have the automated test scripts that are developed with one of the supported language, Java, Python, JS, WebDriverIO, Ruby, and C#. And from the other side, we have the device with applications under test or the web under test that gets these commands from the clients and execute these commands on the app. For example, click on an element on the app and return the result to the clients. Appium is not one component. There is an Appium client and Appium server. Both can be on the same machines if you run your tests locally on local devices or local emulators and simulators, or the server can be on a different machines. For example, in a cloud solution such as SOSLabs, the Appium servers and the devices are located in data centers and not in your machines. So if you think, so if these architectures look simple, from this Appium Pro URL, and appiumpro.com is a really good URL website with a lot of tips about Appium, you can read more about the architecture, how actually the architectures look like. So from your test script, you use the Appium client, use the Appium client's library to run Appium commands that are sent to the Appium server. In this case, we run a test on iOS device, for example. So from the Appium server, we reach to the XUI test drivers and the WebDriver agent. WebDriver agent is a component that Appium installed on the device. This component called to the Apple component XUI test, which runs the commands on the real iOS device. And after that, the result is returned all the way back to your script, to the machines that run it. As I said, Appium clients is in your local machines as part of your, or part of your pipelines. And from the Appium servers to the device, all the component can be local or can be on a remote servers such as SOSLabs. Appium Desktop is a UI tool that is used for identifying the UI elements of the applications under test on the mobile. In the past, Appium Desktop include Appium Server. So you click on the Start Server, and the server start to run. But also, if you click on the magnifying glasses, so that's the server, and you click on the magnifying glasses, and also you start the client side. So Appium Desktop was both for client and for both Appium server and clients. Now the Appium community split the Appium Desktop to two. So Appium Desktop is the new version. In the new version is only for Appium server. It's not anymore include also the clients. And you can see in the Appium Desktop README that it is basically a graphical interface for the Appium server. Okay. Also, when you install Appium Desktop and open it, you will get something similar to this UI. And know that we install Appium Desktop, but the name in the title is Appium Server GUI, because the Appium Desktop now it's only the Appium server. It's a nice UI for the Appium server. We can click on Start Server. And now actually we start the Appium servers. In this case, it's versions 1.22.2, and we start at port 4723 in this case. The Appium client is now called Appium Inspector. And you can see here the link to install it. As we can see in the README, or can read in the README of Appium Inspector, Appium Inspector is basically just an Appium client, like WebDriverIO, Appium Java clients, Appium Python client, etc. This is the Appium Inspector first page, where you define the capability. Okay, the capabilities are actually how you connect to a device. So you need to provide the basic ones. You need to define the platform names, the applications, locations, and more capabilities like that. That Appium will know how to connect, how to find the device, and how to install the app. My recommendations is before setting the capability in your Java frameworks or any other frameworks, use this Appium Inspector. Install Appium Inspector, use the Appium Inspector, set your capability in the Appium Inspector, and make sure, that you manage to connect to the device you want and to install the app under test. If you manage to connect from Appium Inspector, probably you can use the same capability in your code. So start with Appium Inspector first. Back to the Appium server. To start the Appium server, you can use the Appium desktop as we discussed in a few slides. That actually an Appium server with a nice GUI interface. Or if you can install Appium server by yourself. Okay, you don't necessarily need the Appium desktop. For that, you need first to install Node.js, and here I show 3 options how to install it. Or you can install it directly from the Node.js website, or using NVM, Node version managers, or on Mac OS and Linux, you can use also Homebrew to install Node.js. After that, after you install Node.js, you can install directly Appium, npm install -g, meaning install it on all that everywhere in your machines you will access to the Appium, -g Appium. And I also recommend to install the Appium Doctor, because using Appium Doctor will diagnose your iOS and Android configurations issues. For example, if I run Appium Desktop, Appium Doctors, this is kind of the output from the Appium Doctor with a report, what versions of Node I have, what are the system environment that are installed and where they are installed. For example, Android Home, if Xcode is installed to run iOS, and more. So what actually we can do with Appium Inspector? So let's see a basic use of Appium Inspector. So hopefully you can see that. First of all, I am starting Appium server. So now Appium server, so I'm doing everything on the same machines, on my machines. So I started Appium server. Now I open Appium Inspector. And as I said, this is the capability. I already have set capability that I can use. This is the capability that I use to install a demo app on my emulators. So I bring the emulators so that you can see. And again, in the capability, the platform name, Android, which device, it's Pixel 3, Appium app, passed to where is the app located, so it can be installed. I start a session, click on the start sessions. You can see in the background that Appium server is start to run. And soon we should see that the demo app is installed on my emulators. And we can also see an image, a mirror of the app in the Appium Inspector. So now let's go to a different page, to the login page. And I'll refresh Appium Inspector. Something happened, just a moment, let's go back to this. Okay. Again, I go to the login page. I just wanted to stop it, and by mistake, I started the video from the beginning. Okay, so now I want to show you something that not many people know about Appium Inspector. You can see that I have a get timing. I have this button of get timing. I think that it's really useful with the get timing. Now I'm pointing on the password elements. I'm clicking on the get timing, and I can see in the Appium Inspector the 2 locators, how I can locate my password edit box with timing. So I understand from here that to find the password by accessibility ID will take 81 milliseconds using XPath locator 136 locator. So actually I can use that. So in this case, it's better to use accessibility ID in my WebDriverIO, Java, C# code, because it will be faster to find the elements using accessibility ID than using XPath in this case. And I continue the demo. If I click now on the username, I can see in the right side, again, the locators. How can I find the username edit box? I can, in this case, I can use the Appium Inspector to send key. So I'm sending key to this edit box. Now I will do the same for the password. Also go send keys to the password. And after that, what I need to do is to click on the buttons. And for that, I can use, again, the same. I can go to the login buttons and click, or in the Appium desktop, in the Appium Inspector, I can also do that from the menu. I have buttons to tab by coordinate, so I can click on this one, and actually I can tap everywhere I want on the app. In this case, I click on the login, and I'm in the products page. Also, using Appium Inspectors, I have a nice buttons that I can actually use to swipe by coordinate. So I can click also on that if I need to click on the start buttons, click on the end buttons, and Appium Inspector will swipe, will scroll the page for me. Okay. What else we can do with Appium Inspector? So something that it's really important with mobile testing that I think that a lot of developer and QA and testers forget about, gestures, that we need to use gestures. We all use our fingers on a device. We are not using a mouse or a JavaScript to inject a scroll command to go to the element. So please use gestures as part of your test. And something that can be done, just a moment. An example of this time, it's a demo about using iOS simulator. Before that, it was Android. So again, I'm stuck to the server, and let's see how we can actually using Appium commands to swipe and to do something similar for that. So in the Appium Inspector, we also have Actions tab that I found out that not many Appium users know about that. So you can click on the Actions tab, execute script, and here you can actually use one of the Appium commands. So in this case, I want to use Appium command to scroll. So this is the command, mobile scroll, and in the argument, what I need to supply is the directions if I want to scroll up or down. Okay, so in this case, the direction should be down, okay? And when I will execute this command, you can see that my app was scrolled up. And actually with these options of running Appium command, I can do much more. So for example, and I will move it faster. For example, I can also use execute script like press buttons, and I need to supply what is, and I need to set the argument, what is the, which button I want to click. So in this case, I click on the on button and click on the execute. And I click on the on button. So actually, how do you know about all the commands that you can use? From the Appium documentations, you can see here actually execute script, the mobile scroll, the one that I used in my demo. Also, you can find the specific command for UI Automator 2, meaning for Android, and for XUI test for iOS. So everything is documented in the Appium, and you can find out what are the mobile command that you can use in Appium Inspector, but also you can find out what how to run them in your language that you are using. If it's Java, Python, JavaScript, Ruby, C#. So let's move on. Until now, it was an Appium Inspector, that it's a nice Appium clients. But now let's understand from the beginning of the sessions. Now, instead of all the languages, now let's focus on Java. So what are the steps to start to develop Java code using Appium? So first of all, you need to create Java project, and you can use any framework such as TestNG, JUnit 4, JUnit 5, Cucumbers, or actually any WebDriver protocol based frameworks. After that, you need to install Java clients. Okay, so this is an example from the Maven website. You can find here the code that you can copy, the dependency that you can copy to your POM file, and that actually you install the Java client to use and to have access to the Appium commands. After that, you need to start a Appium server. So actually, all of these capabilities that we run in Appium Inspector, you find that it's working fine for you. So you kind of can copy them to your Java framework and use that to start. And you need to start a driver. It can be Appium driver, Android driver, iOS driver. After that, when you have the drivers, you can develop your business test case. So you use the Appium driver to find elements on the mobile device, run actions, click on elements, send text, perform gesture, as I mentioned, and assertions, verify that element is visible, clickable, or other verifications to make sure that your business flow run as expected. And in the end, stop the Appium sessions. Okay, so kill the Appium driver, and actually in this, by killing the Appium drivers, you also release the device. And you can go also to the Appium Java clients Git repository and see the latest versions. Actually, now is 8.2. And also, as I showed before, also for Maven, you can understand what is the code that you can copy to your Java if you're using Maven or Graders or others platforms, frameworks. Okay, and that's very important, the migrations. If you already run or already have if already you have a frameworks that you run before with a Java client, not Java client version 8 or Java client before that, 7, for example, there's a lot of changes when moving to Java client 8. Please take a look in the version 7 to version 8 migration guide. But what are all the changes? Because it's very important to follow the migration guide. Example, Java example, Java code example to run. Before method is a method that run before each test. This is the capability. Actually, I copy more or less the capability that I used in the Appium inspectors. I copy it to my Java code. And here I start Android driver because I want to run this code on Android emulators. After method, in the end of the test, as I said, I need to kill the driver by running the quit commands. And this is my test. So in the test, you can see that I'm using the driver to find elements, send text to the elements. And now I'm starting the server. Again, I can start the server also from the Java code, not manually. If I need, I can also put a breakpoint if I want to stop the test and debug what is going on. And I start to run my test. Soon, I should see that everything, that also the Appium server start to get commands. This is my emulators, Appium emulator. So first of all, my app should be installed. Okay, so my app installed, and now the script start to run. Click on the menu, send key. Click on the go to site. And now the code stop in my breakpoint. If I need in this step to debug, so I can do that. And in my case, I just will continue to run my script. Yeah, and my script continue to run with verifications that I'm in the right page. And as you can see, test passed 1, my test finished to run and passed. What about WebDriver IO? WebDriver IO, it's a very popular JS automated framework to automate web apps and native apps. In the WebDriver IO documentations, you can find all the information about using Appium with WebDriver IO. For example, the package you need to install and the configuration that you need to follow. Okay, so in this short video, this is a WebDriver IO frameworks to connect to to connect to Appium and to run the same script that I ran before in Java. Now I developed that also in WebDriver IO in JS frameworks. You can see here that I want to start the Appiums. Again, the capability that I want to use as before, but in the JS language, whereas the locations of my APK file that I want to install. And this is the code, find elements, click, more or less the same flow, the business flow that I did in Java. Also now it's in WebDriver IO. I will start the server. Okay, and again, also I can start the server from WebDriver IO frameworks. And I run the script, Android native, to run the script. I run forward. And Appium server start to run. WebDriver IO install the app with Appium, install the app on the Android emulators. And now I didn't put any breakpoints, so my app, my code will run and finish to run. And you can see in the WebDriver IO that one passing and how long it takes to run it. So before we go, the last slide. So before we go, a guideline that I believe it is important for using Appium's, Selenium, and actually any other frameworks. Test as isolated as possible. No dependency to your test. So each test can run by itself. Automate as much as possible, but also no risk equal no test. What I mean by that, each test should add a value, okay, for the customers, for the business. So only automate what would have a most risk or would cost the most money if it breaks. Zero tolerance, meaning that run the same test 100 times in the same environment with the same test data and same conditions, and all the time you want the same result every time. And fast feedback, it's about, for example, CI/CD is all about that, fast feedback. So start with that and as early as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eyal. And do you mind clicking out of your presentation so we can see you again? We have a couple of questions. And if anybody has any additional questions, please do put them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen there. But first of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this interface between Appium and Source Labs emulators. Does Appium work? You said at the outset that, of course, we now need to test across hundreds of different devices. Is Appium equally effective across all devices? And I'm thinking also in terms of apps, the number of different experiences, let's take financial services firms and banks, for example, that they want to offer their customers, thinking about gamification, different functions, different visuals and graphics. Is Appium equally effective across all testing requirements?
Yes, so most of the banks that I'm familiar in the UK, in Europe, in the US, are using something that's related to cloud solutions such as Source Labs, because using cloud providers such as Source Labs, you can run your tests in Source Labs. You also have emulator and simulators, and we have a different presentations about when to run on emulator simulators, when to choose emulator simulator, when to choose real devices. But with Source Labs, you can run on emulator simulators, and also you can run on real devices. And you can have your public devices, but also many banks prefer to use the private devices, okay, that also available on SOS Labs. So actually you can install the app on the devices. You don't need to uninstall it in the end, or because of security reason, or the login or the registration is a long process. That many banks find out that it's take a long process to register, so they prefer that after the registrations that the app will stay on the device, and you don't want that the app will stay on the device on public device. For that you need to use a private device. But Appium support all the Android devices and operating system that I'm familiar for Android, iOS. You can use with Appium. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, perhaps we could ask you to look into your crystal ball and tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening over the next year, 2 years with Appium. What is the community working on now that you think will make a significant difference? I'm thinking perhaps, for example, about the increased scrutiny that all companies are facing from regulatory authorities in regard to the resilience of their applications, but also the resilience of the third-party providers of technology. So this is obviously a concern that a lot of companies still have with open source tools. Mm-hmm. Do you see the community providing significant changes in that respect or enhancements?
I see that already today. So first of all, in the last few weeks, Appium 2, I see that now Appium 2 is in the beta version, so soon it will be, hopefully it will be released. And with Appium 2, there is a lot of changes, a lot of new features. I see that already today regarding security. I think that already today, most of the finance companies and banks already use Appium with SOS Labs, without SOS Labs, even on their local machines with their own grid. But I don't see any security concerns using Appium, even that it's open source tools. But I'm not familiar with any restrictions, or let's say I didn't hear any companies or any bank that said I will not use Appium because it's not secure enough.
Okay, and we do have one other question from somebody in the audience today. I'm just going to read it. What is the difference if the demo app was on cloud on Appium usage?
Demo app was on cloud on Appium usage.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that
because it is on the cloud, isn't it?
The demo app?
Yes.
The demo app is so first of all, the demo app that if you need to run it, so let's say if you need to run it, to install it and run it on SOS Labs or any cloud provider, the app in the end installed on the device, okay? And we need to find out where the app is located. So the app can be uploaded using it can be uploaded to a source storage, or it can be on a public repository, and you just can say I want to install the app, and the app is in this public repository, so there is access to this app. But when the app is installed on the device, that's it. Now it's the device is in the cloud. The app already installed on the clouds. The app already installed, on the device, and the script is running. If you're talking about running the Appium commands or Appium script on your local machines, on your local emulators, simulators, or your local device, so you can also point that to your local. In my example, for example, my APK or my zip file for iOS were located on my local machines. Okay, so it's the same. Hopefully I understand the questions.
Yes, I hope so too. I mean, actually, she asked the question. I hope that is the answer to the question that you were putting.
If not, please ask again.
Yes, if not, please let us know, and we'll put the question to Eyal. Otherwise, really, that's it. We've run out of time, and Eyal, I look forward to seeing you again really quite soon at our event on October the 18th. And I'd also like to thank everybody else for spending their time with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.